Hello. Today I'm going to tie for you what I'm calling the wood duck dry fly. I'm not following any particular pattern. This is more about using some materials, but I'm pretty sure this would fool a trout or two. Hey, remember when mustad hooks, you could buy a whole box of them for $6.99? Not anymore. So here's the magic. My son-in-law is trying to become my favorite right before Christmas, and he brought me these wood duck feathers from a recent hunt that he and his buddies went on. For this fly, I'm going to use a brown and a grizzly hackle. I have this lighter colored hackle I'm going to use. We're going to wrap these hackle stems, rachis, I guess they're called, and I'm going to hold it all together with some 8/0 uni thread. So I'll get the hook and the vise, and we'll start talking about the fly and hunting and whatever here. Originally, I got in the habit of wrapping thread back to the hook point, then halfway back forward, and that was where I locate my wings. But what I learned was when you have a layer of thread and another layer, especially uni thread, because it's waxed and it's a little sticky, I struggled to pull this feather through. So you can see here, um, I'm pulling it against the bare hook and I'm fiddling with the thread, changing tension, pulling forward, and trying to lock it down where I need it. So I think we like that. I think the wing might be a little long, not sure, but we're going to go with that. The other thing I learned from practicing just before I went on camera here is I was cutting the butt section of this feather in a long taper, and it got a little bulky back there because we have a couple of materials to tie in yet, and if I got too far back, it just kind of bulked up. So as Edwards would say, let's bang a few wraps right here in front of the fibers to prop them up. But here I'm using my thumb and kind of holding them back. I'm going to reach in under the camera stand and do the first crisscross wrap. And I learned you have to make the whole X so things stay in place. And there we go. That wasn't half bad, and I think I got them divided fairly evenly. But again, this is about using these wood duck feathers. And although I think I'd love to be a Catskill fly tyer, I'm not sure I'd tie a whole box of these, and I doubt I'll ever be as good as those guys were. First off, everything I do comes out just a little chunkier than what the Catskill guys would like. Um, Here we're just cleaning up a little bit, getting rid of some short fibers and a couple of strays. And we'll go back to where we're going to put in the tail. So yeah, it's kind of funny because my son-in-law mentioned going duck hunting, and I said, well, if you ever happen to get a wood duck, let me know. There's some feathers off of there that I'd like to get my hands on. And I sent him a picture out of a catalog, and sure enough, he sent me a text message and said, guess what we got? So I got a little bag of those feathers, and I'm not sure how many are in there. I'm not sure how many are on a wood duck. Um, I wish they were a lot more, but beggars can't be choosy. So here I did that little Charlie Craven trick where I'm going to use a mixture of brown and grizzly hackle fibers here for the tail. So I did that little trick where you take one bundle and you kind of hold them on the hook with a wrap or two, and then uh, line up the other bundle and unwrap them, and then you kind of come back in and tie them all down at once. So I did that. I put a wrap underneath. These flared out a little more than I'd like, but I guess the Catskill guys like them to all be in one straight shot coming straight out the back. I think that's what I saw a lot of. Um, I guess everybody has their own preferences. And again, thinking like a Catskill guy, but this is nothing close. So now we got wings that I like. We've got a tail in place, a little longer than on some flies, but I like it. And what I did was, originally I was just going to use one hackle stem. I did look at using the eye of a peacock sword, or peacock feather, and I was going to strip one of them and wrap it, but I didn't have one that was banded. I like that segmentation, and it just looked like a brown body, and I didn't really care for it. So I went with the stems instead, and to get segmentation, I took one of the dark brown stems and the light brown stem, and we're going to tie them in and wrap them side by side. And I like the finished product here. Although these stems, like I said, everything here is what I'd call either chunky or bulky. But again, I think this will do a good job. I'm not gonna, we've all kind of moved on. We fish parachute dry flies these days, and some of the bigger with some artificial materials, and they float higher and they do better. But there are those days where you just want to do things with natural materials and like the old guys did it. So maybe on that day I'll tie this fly on. So here I learn a lesson. I'm holding that down. The weight of the bobbin wasn't enough to hold those. When I switched hands, the weight of the bobbin was supposed to hold those hackle stems in place, but it wasn't enough. So I kind of caught it real quick, saved my work, and got a couple more wraps on there. And it's probably, I guess, interesting to note here. The real Catskill guys, they'll do cross wraps. They'll go back over those stems and then come back forward and kind of cross hatch them with the thread. And it disappears when you put a coat of head cement on there. I didn't do that, and mostly because I didn't remember about it until after I tied this fly. So here we are with the Wasatch applicator and a little dab of Sally Hansen's. And we'll get a coat. Takes about 2 of those little droplets to cover everything. And you notice I rotated that in the direction that adds thread wraps and doesn't take them away. So I faded away. We gave it about, I don't know, several minutes to dry. And we'll tie in those 2 hackles. I'm going to do one of the brown hackles and then a grizzly hackle as well. And the purists will argue about which direction to tie the feathers in. Should the shiny side face forward or backward? They will also argue about whether or not you should wrap the brown hackle first or the grizzly hackle first. I'm not going to care about that stuff. So we got the hackle stems held down in place and snip them off so they'll finish behind the eye. I'll pull everything out of the way, go up there, get another whip finish. Technically a single whip finish is a half hitch, right? So we'll lock things in place so I can use the rotary feature if I want to. And like I mentioned, we're going to start with the brown hackle. So you'll notice I left a gap there. It was kind of on purpose, maybe a little bigger gap than I should have. I got about, I don't know, 2.5 wraps behind. I'll do about 2 wraps in front. And it probably would have been nice to hold the stem up and wrap it down. But I let it just kind of dangle there on the hackle pliers, and that's where I pinned that hackle down. But I think if you finished on top and you snipped them short, there's less chance of blocking the eye of the hook. So just lessons learned as I go, thinking about later, watching it. So we'll get a turn or two behind the wings and then a couple of turns in front. Like I said, this isn't, I'm not going to fill the box with these, but I'm going to keep it there. And on a day when I don't know, a little sentimental or feeling about or remembering about the old timers and who laid the foundation and the groundwork for all this, maybe I'll tie this fly on in the middle of a hatch and see what happens. Um, that hook's a size 16. I think a lot of this would have looked less beefy if I would have done this on a bigger hook. Um, or would have been just as beefy, but it would have looked less beefy on the bigger hook. So we'll do some snipping and trimming here and get anything headed forward, snip it out of the way, anything I trap down. Yeah, it's not a bad looking little fly. So when I whip finish, I'm going to do a 6-turn whip finish. I want to uh, cover my mistakes or all the ends I cut off. So I'll do 3 wraps back and 3 wraps back forward. So I finish right behind the eye. I know they talk about wrapping, doing whip finishes back to front, but if you go back and come back forward, it's kind of the same result. So here we are. Sans a little head cement on the thread wraps there, but and bump the camera and wiggle things, but that's the finished product. Here we go with the head cement. And that's soaked in, and that's it. I like it. So try and give you a better look at this. Zoom in a little bit. I don't know. It's pretty much kind of a mashup of some techniques, but I got to use my wood duck feathers for wings. Thanks for hanging in there to the end. If you want to learn more about me, look me up on Amazon. And until next time, be safe.